Welcome back to another edition of the Knight Report podcast. I'm your host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again is part-time co-host Alec Crowdhamel. Rutgers gets back on track, 82-73, first-ranked win of the season against the Fighting Illini of Illinois. Another quad one win for the Rutgers Scarlet Knights in one of the highs of an up-and-down season. I'm once again feeling that masculine urge of saying we're so back when I know we are definitely not. But step in the right direction for the Scarlet Knights basketball team. We'll get into the game, some kind of what-if questions, and what is looming the rest of the season for the Scarlet Knights. But first, this podcast is presented to you once again by Knight and Day Apparel. Hey, Rutgers fans, get ready to slam dunk your style with Knight and Day Apparel. Cheer on your Scarlet Knights this basketball season in our exclusive Rutgers gear. From trend-setting designs to lifestyle garments, we've got you covered with everything you need to support your team in comfort and flair. Stand out in the crowd and show your passion for Rutgers basketball with designs that celebrate every dribble, dunk, and victory. Use our promo code RutgersRivals to get 10% off your purchase. Don't wait, head to Knight and Day Apparel today and gear up for game day. Go Knights. We are also presented to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. The biggest betting weekend of the year is finally here, which means more updated odds and props for Super Sunday. We have hundreds of prop bets, MVP odds, and exclusive in-game live betting. BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline offers you everything to enhance your game day experience. Visit the website today and make the game day action count a little bit more. BetOnline, the game starts here. Rutgers won last night 82-73 behind a surprising performance by Dylan Harper, who scored 28 points. I say surprising not because you don't expect those things from Dylan Harper when he's on the court. It was more of the latter. He was on the court, and he looked like himself. You know, the last time we spoke about him, we were kind of questioning, would he play again this year? Was his injury going to eliminate him from playing another game for the Scarlet Knights? And he did not look hampered whatsoever last night, other than, you know, his conditioning being a little bit behind because he hasn't played really a full game in a month. He looked every bit like the top draft prospect that we thought he would be coming into the season, and we've seen throughout the season. Alec, you were there last night. You were texting us that it might be the loudest that you've heard the rack all season. Talk about what that game was like, being there live in person, and kind of what your thoughts are on this team after last night's win.
Yeah, I think that, like I said, I think that was definitely the loudest that it's been all year. I guess to steal a word from the Rutgers rant, this is how it was supposed to be this year. With Jersey Mike's Arena jumping, with these ranked teams coming in, with Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper playing their best. Like you said, I was surprised he was going to play. I felt like he might have come back from Maryland, but I felt like it might have been just too quick of a turnaround from his injury to play last night. But he was listed as questionable on the availability report. I still didn't think we were going to see him, or at least I didn't think we were going to see much of him. Then he comes out for shoot-around. He has a smaller brace on his ankle. He looks fine moving around, even during warm-ups as well. Like, you know, Richie and I were on the floor, and I think Richie, Craig, and I were on the floor at Madison Square Garden. It was clear that he really did not have it. He wasn't going to be able to do much. He really tried, but he just didn't have it. Last night, he definitely did have it, and obviously it showed on the floor. 28 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, and 4 steals. So really an all-around game for him. And one thing that we hadn't seen in a little bit, 11-12 from the free throw line. He really made a point to get to the line, go to the basket, and attack as well. So, a return to form for Dylan Harper. Like you said, he at the end of that first half, he started to look really gassed, and I think it's just, you know, getting him back fully up to game speed. But other than that, it was a really great game for Dylan Harper. Ace Bailey had his 7th double-double of the season, 18 points and 11 rebounds. He also had 3 blocks, and he also had that one basket over Jeffrey Anderson. It turned from Jeffrey Anderson guarding him, contesting the shot, and then somehow he started backpedaling and set a screen on Merez Johnson, so it kind of helped him, I guess. But that was a weird one. Ace after the game, he said it was just a high IQ play. But yeah, those guys were awesome. Jeremiah Williams was the only other Scarlet Knight in double figures. He had 13. I thought he had a really nice second half. He struggled a bit in the first half. He also hit his free throws 7-8 from the line, and I would say that this was probably Rutgers' best performance of the season, especially getting its first ranked win in 361 days.
Jeez.
No, 360 days.
That's unbelievable. Given how we've come to expect these kind of wins from Steve Peichel, especially at the rack. Um, you could argue last night that the two best defenders on Rutgers were the two superstar freshmen. Ace, like you mentioned, with the 3 blocks, but his rebounding was definitely much needed in the second half when it seemed like Rutgers was just, had the ball was like a greased up pig. They could not grab the thing on defense. And that led to a lot of second chance points for the Illini. It allowed them to get back into the game. They actually took the lead after Rutgers was up by 17 in the midway through the first half. It definitely felt, and I'm sure in the building it felt even more like that, just me on the couch. This felt like a game that was slipping away, and the crowd was not, was taken out of the game, midway through that second half. But Rutgers responded, a couple big threes from Dylan Harper. We had a lot of open looks last night from the 3-point line, and other than Dylan Harper, we weren't doing much. Late in the game, Zach Martini and PJ Hayes both broke their cold streaks. They both hit some clutch threes. Dylan Grant got a lot of open looks, but it's clear he's a good corner 3-point shooter, but from those elbow areas beyond the 3-point line, he's just not there yet, because they were not even putting a defender out on him when he had the ball there. Jerry Carino had a story this morning talking about Jeremiah Williams. I didn't know how sick the guy was. He hasn't had an entire meal, according to Jerry, in 10 days. He's barely been able to keep food down. It started before the Northwestern game. He could barely move. He was, ice cold. He said he was, in sweats and just shivering. So I hope he's starting to feel better, because I feel like a lot of those runners that he is normally pretty good at, that he was not even close to hitting last night at certain points. I feel like as he gets his strength back, I think he said he lost 10 pounds the last 10 days. I think he's going to be a crucial part. I think the thing that really was the most encouraging, other than the defense that we already talked about, was the free throws. Like you said, we shot 34 free throws last night. We hit 28, 82.4% from the line. I feel like that's got to be the season high for any time they took more than 15 free throws. But this, you said it perfectly. This was the team we expected to see all season. Now, I know that Steve Pikiel's defensive system is not easy to learn. I know that he has not relied this heavily on freshmen before in the past, so I feel like there was a lot of learning curve that got them to this point. But it's kind of like it's crunch time. Our backs are squarely against the wall. The picture, which was almost totally opaque for them to make the postseason in general, has gotten a little less foggy with this first big quad one win, but they need to have this thing snowball now. I know they're playing a really tough game on Sunday at Maryland, the Maryland team that's really caught fire recently. But they have to continue to pull these upsets in order to keep their postseason hopes alive.
Yeah, definitely. And to go back to what you said before, it was probably it was the second best free throw shooting performance for Rutgers when they shoot at least 30, which they've actually done a surprising amount of times. Against Alabama out in Vegas, they shot 30 of 35. Okay. That was the game where I think Dylan Harper was 16 of 17 or something like that.
Yes, yep.
Yeah. I do want to give a couple shout outs as well. Jermichael Davis, I feel like that guy underrated best hops on the team, because I feel like whenever a rebound goes high into the air, he's always, even if he's going up against a big man, he's always close to getting his hand on it or getting his hand on it. That guy can just go straight up in the air. Obviously, he showed the trust that they have in him with that. He was in on the closing lineup. He got a couple of tip balls as well in that first half when Illinois was completely out of sorts on offense. So yeah, a big game, not big on the box score, but a really nice game for Jermichael Davis as that steadying force on defense as well. Like you said, PJ Hayes and Zach Martini got those big threes back to back when Illinois seemed like they were going to start to run away with the game. Hayes hit a 3 on an extra pass from Martini, and then on the next possession, Jeremiah Williams kind of got caught. I think he either picked up his dribble or he hadn't dribbled yet, but he fired a really nice cross-court pass to Martini, who canned the open 3 as well. That was a big one as well. And then PJ Hayes coming in that final minutes when Rutgers' front court depth is basically down to almost nothing, really, with Lathan Somerville fouling out. Bryce Dortch picked up 4 fouls. Dylan Grant didn't have his best yesterday on offense. Steve Pikiel puts in PJ Hayes with the shot clock winding down and with like less than a minute left, he drives to the basket after Illinois bid on the 3-pointer, and he put up a layup but didn't make it. And then I think either Ace Bailey got the offensive rebound, I
No, that
think,
was
on that
PJ.
one. Oh, that he
That
got
was
his
PJ.
own?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I know Ace and PJ got offensive rebounds on that possession. I couldn't remember. But yeah, PJ got that offensive rebound. They took almost a full minute off the clock on that possession,
Yep.
and that was really the driving force to sealing that victory. So I know it's been a bit of a theme. It's kind of an obvious theme when your two superstars play and you get key contributions from your depth guys, but we haven't seen that a lot from Rutgers this year, and that was really the formula to put together. Big plays by Hayes and Martini and Davis, and those three off the bench really helped secure this win.
Yeah, you talked about J Mike's rebounding, and that really is just such an underrated part of his game. I think he's just got that natural nose for the ball. He knows how to position himself. He's almost always undersized, so he has to incorporate that into every part of his game. Is okay, I'm undersized. How do I leverage that, and how do I position myself in order to get an open shot, get a rebound? I feel like he does that really well. Um, Jeremiah Williams, Bryce Dortch, Zach Martini, PJ Hayes, Jordan Durkak, and Tyson Acuff. So those six guys, they played a combined 67 minutes, four total rebounds. J Mike, 27 minutes, four total rebounds. Just to kind of to show you kind of where the rebounding woes were. Um, Overall, I mean, this team played awesome last night with a few scoring lulls. I hopped on Ant Wright's halftime chilling Twitter space, and he's like, "How do you feel about this game going forward?" I'm like, "Well, I feel really good about it. This is kind of the team we expected to see all season. They just can't go, 4 minutes without scoring like they've shown they typically do. And then, of course, coming out of the half, they don't score for, 3 minutes from the 16-minute mark to the 13-minute mark. Illinois takes the lead. Thankfully, they were able to recover. Um, but yeah, feeling good about this team. As long as this is the kind of output that we get moving forward, at least we can close on a high note where, this is a competitive team, looks more like the effort level that Rutgers is used to. They're currently at 12-11 on the season, 5-7 in conference play. I talked to you about this before we started, but Rutgers has played in 10 games this year, so in 2025. They've gone 4-6 in those games. Each one of those games, Dylan Harper either hasn't played or hasn't been 100% other than last night. Of those 6 losses, if Dylan Harper was at full strength, how many do you think we end up winning? So I'll go through them again just for the viewers at home. It's the Michigan game at home on Saturday. They lost 66-63. The MSG game against Michigan State, they lost 81-74. Penn State is when he rolled his ankle. They lost that game 80-72. Purdue at home, they lost 68-50. Wisconsin at home, they lost 75-63. And then on the road against Indiana, they lost 84-74. That's the game that Ace Bailey scored 39. How many of those games do you think Rutgers wins with a fully functional Dylan Harper?
I say 3 as kind of like a midpoint. I'm kind of half and half in the Michigan State and Indiana games, so I'll say it averages out at 3. I think they definitely win that Penn State game because, as we saw, he was his full self and he was really playing well in that first half, and then he gets hurt, and then the Rutgers. It feels like the offense kind of went stagnant in that game later on in that game, especially. I think they definitely beat Michigan. Uh,
Yep.
that was mostly a game where the defense played really well, but they just could not find a way to hit shots. And it wasn't like there were a ton of bad shots, but I think Dylan's pressure on the rim definitely would have helped and scored more points. I think they win that game definitely with a full strength Dylan Harper. And then I'm torn between Indiana and Michigan State. I could see arguments for both. I don't think they win both, but I also don't think they lose both. So I'll set the midpoint at 3. The thing with the Indiana game, I mean, obviously, like you said, Ace Bailey scored 39 points. The defense was the main problem there. They just could not get a stop. So I'm not sure. I mean, Indiana also had a tremendous game from the perimeter as well. So maybe
Yep.
his defense helps out from the 3-point line, preventing that. Michigan State, yeah, obviously, he tried to go, but he couldn't. That was another game where it was just they just could not get a stop on defense either. Even in stretches where Michigan State was struggling, they just couldn't get that stop and score to get the run going. So I'll say 3. I think 3, and that would put them at what 8-4 in the Big Ten If they win, if you flip those three results, you're 8-4 in the Big Ten. You're 15-8 on the season, and that's kind of like what we were expecting if you have that record.
Yeah, and that's not are you in or not. That's playing for seeding at that point. So that just goes to show how important all these games are. Those are all, for the most part, quad one opportunities that Rutgers
Yeah,
wasn't able to take advantage of. Like you
especially
said,
a quad one. Sorry to cut you off. A quad 1A game over Michigan State as well.
yep. Yeah, those opportunities are available to us moving forward. We just need to take advantage of them. I think the only there's three that are questionable. Iowa is, I think, a quad two right now. Um, Washington is probably a quad two or three, and then Minnesota is a quad three. But other than that, actually USC might be a quad two as well. But I guess we'll see. I saw a stat that there's 32 teams in college basketball right now with 4 or more quad one wins. 31 of those 32 teams are currently projected to be in the tournament. Rutgers is the other. So if you're gonna start making fringe cases, and it seems like why is Rutgers tournament resume always just like this like unique, weird little duck? Like it can't ever just be normal. It's like
Nope.
it's always got to be like, okay, yeah, you had 4 ranked wins in a row, but you lost to 2 quad 4 teams early in the season, or just something of the sort. Like I don't know if you've seen the meme of like
Why
it's
can't
like
you just be normal?
the hereditary meme. Yeah, why can't you
The
just be
screaming.
normal? Yeah, yeah.
Or to take a piece from the NFL, I think it was Kevin Clark from ESPN that tweeted like 5 years ago, the Seattle Seahawks have never played a normal football game, and it still rings
Yeah.
true 5 years later.
Yep.
Let's see. So looking at Iowa would be quad 2 because they are 64 in the net right now.
Okay.
I think we know Oregon's going to be quad 1. Washington, let's see, their net ranking right now is they are 99 right now in the net. So that would put them at that's on the road. So that would put them at a quad 2 game. What was the other one again that you weren't sure about? USC, I think.
USC. Yep.
Well, of course, these games are still a couple weeks away, so they could change. But
Yep.
right now, USC is 68 in the net, and that game is at home, so that'd be quad 1 regardless.
No. That wouldn't be a quad 1 for 68th for a
Or
road.
sorry, yeah, brain fart. That would be a quad 2. Yeah,
Okay. Yep.
it's a low quad 2. Same with Iowa. So again, that's still far a ways away, so it could change.
Yep. And this Sunday they'll be playing at noon at Maryland. You won't be there. You'll be covering the women's game. Super Bowl Sunday. This feels like the kind of like sleepy atmosphere that maybe you steal one. Maryland, like I said, is playing pretty well right now. It's going to be really tough to stop their freshman phenom center. Lathan's really going to have to show up for that game. But they've won 4 in a row and 6 of their last 7, including 2 ranked wins and a win at Indiana in that stretch. Actually, UCLA was ranked as well at the time, but they're no longer ranked, obviously. If you want to get a little early scout, they play tonight at Ohio State as well on FS1 at 7 p.m. if you want to watch Maryland play.
And I think with this Maryland team too, it's not the Maryland of last year, 2 years ago, where they have Julian Reese and they have this really great point guard. This year it's Jacoby Gillespie. Years past it was Jameer Young, and then they just can't shoot otherwise. Like last year, they're a terrible shooting team, and that's kind of why they missed the postseason. This is a really good shooting team as well. I mean, they shoot 37.2% from 3. That's 43rd nationally. They have legit shooters as well. Like Gillespie's very good. Rodney Rice and Selton Miguel are other guys to look out for. So this is a legitimate offensive force as well, as opposed to the past couple years for Maryland where it's been mostly defense, although they're built through defense, but they can score with some of the best as well. So it's going to be tough. I mean, we saw Illinois, this kind of coaching malpractice by Brad Underwood last night in that first half. Illinois takes the most 3-pointers in the Big Ten, but hits them at the second worst rate, only behind Michigan State. By the way, they take 80 more threes than Wisconsin, who's second.
Wow.
And they were absolutely miserable in that first half. I mean, they were 2 for 17 in the first half. it seemed like they just refused to do anything on the interior, even though Rutgers' front court was really thin, which is, I guess, a negative we can take from this game. A lot of the reason Illinois got back into the game was because they started pounding it inside with Merez Johnson and Tomislav Ivicic. Um, it was I didn't understand it. Like their first, let's see if I can pull up the shooting chart. Yeah, the first 6 shots that Illinois took were jumpers. 2 of them mid range, 3 of them mid range, 3 of them threes, and then Merez Johnson takes a layup and makes it. And then they take 2 more jumpers that miss, and then Merez Johnson gets another layup and makes that one as well, which was kind of a theme throughout this game. They shot 14 of 22 on layups in the game, and let's see, doing my math here, 13 of 43 in all other not layup shots. So I don't know what the heck they were doing on offense. That was, but you know what? Rutgers played well enough. They really contained the shooters as well. They contained some of those drives as well. They got it done. So we'll see if they can do a lot of the same. But it's definitely going to be a very tough matchup against Maryland because they have those 2 bigs that really do a lot offensively and defensively. Julian Reese is a beast on the boards, and he plays the 4 for the most part as well for them. And then you got shooters as well. So it's going to be a really tough matchup. And I kind of agree. It could be that like sleepy Sunday afternoon. Like both, I've been there a couple times for men's games down in College Park, and there really hasn't been a great environment any of those times. I know that they do have a great crowd. I've seen them have great crowds for other games, but for whatever reason, whenever I've been there, it just hasn't been that way. So I don't know. Maybe they could catch them sleeping. Trying to see who Maryland has after Rutgers. They have Nebraska. So I don't think it'd be like well, I don't know the word I'm looking for. I don't think it's a trap game. They're looking ahead, but they could catch them sleeping when they're on a high.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, they have 5 players that average double figures on this Maryland team. Seeing how they match up with Julian Reese and with, I don't know, I can't think of his name. Dirk Queen is going to be interesting. They can play with size. They can, play with space. They can do a 5-out. So they're a very versatile team, and it kind of makes sense why they are, I believe, 17-5 on the year. Anything else hoops related you wanted to hit on before we talk? I want to touch back on the DC situation again before we head out of here.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that's mostly all I got. Went through most of my points. Yeah, that's about all I got for basketball.
So I wanted to circle back to the defensive coordinator hire because a lot of people were kind of talking about us being a little harsh on the hire, and that maybe it wasn't totally fair to Rob Smith. So I just want to lay out kind of not the facts of the case, but just like put it out there that it took 9 weeks to hire the guy that 3 years ago you let go because he wasn't doing a good enough job at defensive coordinator. Now, does he know what you want if you're Greg Schiano? Yeah, he knows the type of defense you want to call. Greg has worked with them 3 or 4 different times. I'm sure that they're close. But to hire the same guy that 3 years ago you said wasn't good enough, despite the money you had to spend, despite all the coaches that you've had, especially on defense, underneath you that have gone on to advance their careers, and despite all this, talent that you're bringing back and acquiring this offseason, and the fact that there's not many, like this is a power 2 job. There's not many of them in the country, and it's a pretty coveted role, especially if you're not a bottom feeding team, which Rutgers isn't anymore. That's why we just thought it was underwhelming. It has nothing to do with the person of Rob Smith. It just has to do with like, how did you go through the 2 months and this is the answer that you came up with? That was really where it came from. After some thinking, is there anything else you wanted to talk about with regard to the defensive coordinator?
I've kind of softened up on it a bit. I still agree with your overall points that it's kind of surprising that they couldn't get anyone, not that Rob Smith is a terrible hire, but the fact that they couldn't get someone like a riser in the coaching ranks, like a Joe Harris-Simiak was at that point.
Yeah.
Um, it's definitely a little bit surprising. I'm curious to see how they handle both Rob Smith, like we talked about, like Richie, you and I talked about. It seems like the defenses are always pretty solid year one, and then year two they don't do as well. I'm interested to see if this is a short term thing. I don't know if we've actually seen the contract yet that he's getting. I don't think anyone's actually. I don't think they've
Yeah, I don't think
announced
it's been
either
released
hiring
yet.
yet. Yeah, they haven't
Yeah.
announced either hiring yet. So I guess we'll wait and see on that. See if it's how long it is, whether it's a long or short term thing, and how Zach Sparber fits into all this, because obviously he was the first one to come out as the co-DC hire. He gets the linebackers coach title. So is he going to be the eventual successor as the defensive coordinator of the future? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Um, yeah, it's I guess I don't want to say underwhelming, although I don't disagree. It's a bit anticlimactic, which I guess is the same thing as saying underwhelming, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But the fact that it took this long, because again, it's not like this is Penn State. It's not like this is Penn State or Ohio State, where it's in January and your defense coordinator leaves, so it takes a couple weeks and you find your guy. This job had been open since December 4th, so that's 2 months and 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Um, I'm it's just surprising they couldn't find someone with I would say a higher ceiling, I guess. Um, so yeah, this is not to say that completely write off the defense that's going to be terrible or anything like that, but
Yeah,
um,
I don't want to make it sound like that either. This is just a
right,
hire that has no riz, no juice to it. It's like,
yeah,
really? That's what? Come on.
yeah.
Um, so yeah,
I
that's
think I think you put it nicely.
yeah. So that's all we got on that. It'd be interesting to hear what the welcome presser is with the new coaches, but we want them to succeed. It's not like we want to like. I would love to see the defense, really elevate themselves this year. I think they're naturally just going to be better because they're not going to have like the worst injury luck in the league. But in fairness, in 23, we might have had like the best injury luck in the country. So we've seen the yin and the yang, the good and the bad, the last 2 seasons with injuries. So hopefully we just like level out. Hopefully we just don't have everyone get hurt this year.
I'm noticing a theme in this podcast. Hopefully things can just be normal for once.
Yeah, just be normal, please. We can't take this. Give us our meds. Let us not be so high or so low constantly. Just let us let's just hit that easy street, which we haven't been on very often as a Rutgers fans, I realize. But um, that's all we got. Is there anything you wanted to say before we head out of here, Alec?
Metro Classic this weekend. Yay. A lot of fun high
Nice.
school talent to see. Franklin High School. You can check out my preview if you're still curious. I think you can get tickets online if you want to go as well. First game starts today, or I guess it probably will have already started by the time you're watching this. First game starts today at 3 o'clock. Second game starts tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Today goes until 8 o'clock is the last game. The last game tomorrow is 9:30, and then Saturday is the big day. You got game one at 9 a.m., and then you have a total of 10 games, excuse me, with the last one at 9:45. So it's a fun weekend of high school basketball in Franklin if you want to go out and watch.
Awesome. Yeah, check that out if you are free. But otherwise, it's probably the last pod before the Super Bowl. So go Birds.
Yes.
Nobody wants
What's your
to see.
prediction?
I think so. I'll table set in 2022 when we made the Super Bowl. That felt like a house money season where we were ahead of schedule. This is a team that was all just like good vibes. Things were just on easy mode all season. We had an easy schedule, and everything seemed to break our way. Even the Super Bowl was, probably one of the better Super Bowls we've seen in a while. I think they lost 38-35. Largely played a good game outside of the fumble 6 from Jalen Hurts. I didn't feel like we were the better team that year. I felt that things were just easy for us. This year, I feel like we are by far the better team. That doesn't necessarily mean the win, because I think the three key areas of most football games, Kansas City is comparable or better than the Eagles, because you look at the quarterback, unquestionably Pat Mahomes is the better quarterback. Head coach, unquestionably Andy Reid is the better head coach. Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator, because Andy also calls plays on offense, and he's a better play caller than Kellen Moore. Defensive coordinator, I think, is up in the air. I think Vic is comparable to Spagnuolo. Spags is awesome. I'm not trying to say he's bad, but Fangio is similarly experienced. Spags has had more success, so I'll give the edge to Spags, but I don't think that delta is very large. The rosters, though, I feel like are unquestionably the Eagles have a better roster. Their defense is superb. You look at all the metrics, like Kansas City had one of the highest rates of throws at or behind the line of scrimmage in the league, and the Eagles are by far the best team in terms of stopping plays at or behind the line of scrimmage. If you look at how the Eagles have done on turf this year, their defense has allowed a touchdown fewer points than the second best team on defense on turf this year. You look at the running game this year versus the running game in 22, unquestionably better. I just feel like the Eagles win this game. I don't know. There's not like a whole lot of like hard hitting analysis. It's just that I think they're the better team, and I think they haven't turned the ball over. Like their first team offense hasn't turned the ball over in like 6 games, and they've forced a ton of turnovers. Kansas City doesn't turn the ball over a ton, but they have turned the ball over. So I feel like this is a game where the Eagles win the turnover battle and they find a way to win. I'm going to say something like 27 to 23. Maybe a little higher scoring, maybe 31-27, something like that. I think the Eagles win.
Interesting. Do you subscribe to any of the Mahomes ref magic?
So I think there are a lot of like the Texans game was the perfect example of them getting calls where like Mahomes was even trying to flop for some, that hit along the sideline where he like ran full speed at the sideline, stopped at the marker and tried to, fake the contact. They did get some calls in that regarding, personal fouls around the quarterback. I don't necessarily prescribe to them having like the refs in their back pocket, but if you look at just like the raw penalty numbers, I don't think that's a fair way to analyze it because they played from ahead in a lot of these games in the playoffs, especially. So naturally, like you're going to have to be playing riskier on defense for the other teams. So I think there is like a little sprinkling of that magic, but I don't think it's to the extent that people have made it out to be on the internet. But
yeah, also a big reason that it always seems like they get the one big lucky break or the one big lucky call or whatever. It's because they win so much. Like if they go 12-5 instead of 15-1 or 16-1 or whatever, it's definitely not nearly the same discourse about this because it's because they win. That's just how winning goes. So yeah, I don't subscribe to it either. But that's just me.
Yep, same. But I don't think anybody wants to live outside of Kansas City fans in a world where they three-peat. So I feel like there's a lot of begrudging Eagles support this Super Bowl. So we'll take it, even though that's not necessarily the mentality they like to play with. They like everyone hates us and we don't care type stuff. But we've talked long enough about the Super Bowl. I'm sure people are tired of hearing about it and don't want to be around me on Monday if they do win and I'm insufferable. So apologies ahead of time if they win, and forgive my bad mood if they lose and we record on Monday. But we also have that giveaway to wrap things up, the 400th episode celebration giveaway. If you'd like to join in on the contest, give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and in your review, reference the number 400 somewhere. And that'll get you 2 entries to the contest. If you would like to enter another way, you can leave a comment in this video below referencing the number 400 in your comment. That'll get you 1 entry, just a way that we say thank you for being loyal listeners. But for me and Alec, this has been another edition of the Knight Report podcast, signing off.